Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living on Music. I'm Steve Hauk, and very excited about this show today. Have been waiting for it for weeks, and boy, was it worth every second to do. This room behind me, as you see, is Annandale High School in their orchestral room, and right here is my guest today, Annie Ray, who you've heard her name. I'm sure if you're involved in music education in the region, you've probably know her name well, but maybe you know it more than ever now because a few weeks ago, she won a Grammy for the Music Educator Award at the Grammys. And I remember I heard about it, didn't know she was nominated, and was mind blown. Wanted to talk to her immediately, and she was so hugely brought in to be interviewed by my old station on Channel 9, and also WJLA, also obviously podcasts all over the place, radio and TOP, everything. And finally, she's on Living on Music, and boy, is it an amazing talk with this incredible lady who not only is the orchestral director and the performing arts department chair at Annandale High School, but she's just a deep advocate for providing what is universal access, quality music education, known for founding and developing creative opportunities to make music accessible to students of all demographics. And that includes something that came up to her a number of years ago, but it really hit when the pandemic hit and she was in school alone doing remote work and walking down and seeing the handful of Category B, Cat B students because they couldn't do online education. So they were being very, very closely protected and but also educated in person. And she would go and look in and understand what was going on with them and said, look, music is what she said, the quote, music is very inherently human. You don't have to be able to speak. What if I can make some music with them? So not only the Crescendo Orchestra program, but also continuing to be right here and teaching kids the wonders of music and also, you know, more than just playing the instrument, but how it comes to you and how it develops you and things like that. And then again, of course, we talk about not only her becoming the Fairfax County Public Schools Outstanding Secondary Teacher of the Year in 2023, music educator. We all know of music education and music teaching and availability in schools has been really depleted over the last few decades. She came in with 60 students involved with this music education program now, 140, over doubled what it was. And that's largely, I'm sure, due to her and her associates. But she won that Outstanding Secondary Teacher of the Year award, and then again was named 2024 Grammy Music Educator of the Year. And we talk about that experience where you remember that she had incredible times meeting some of the most incredible people in music and in film. Oh yeah, there was this lady. Oh, there's Annie and her husband Irving with I forgot her name. Yes, Taylor Swift, and also meeting some amazing people in there. You know, Meryl Streep, we talked about her and what she talked about musically, but it was also just a lot of these superstars learning about a person who was doing amazing music educator work. And that's what I loved about being, you know, almost sitting in this room with Annie and talking all about her music education aspirations, what she wants to bring across, and not only just for teaching and enhancing students, but also getting music educators going and getting people who might be doing other things saying, hey, maybe you want to try to do this music education part of your life. And we talk about that too. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very special. I know you've heard her name, and now you get a while to learn more about her, and boy, are you lucky. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to Living on Music, Annie Ray. Annie Ray, welcome to Living on Music.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm glad we finally got to connect.
Well, so am I. And boy, have you been connected with, not only, again, just because of what happened in 2024 with the Grammys and all the wonderful aspects of that, but also your amazing run as who you are. And that's what I love, Annie, about what I've seen. Because again, we will talk about that amazing experience. You went with your husband, right? And
Yes.
those pictures, I love all of them with both of the two of you, and also some of those reasonably famous people that you met. But we'll talk all about that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about you right now, and also what I've done over the last 3 or 4 years with this part of my music journalism. I've been a music journalist for about 20 years, but for Living on Music, the Zoom nature began obviously in 2020 and things like that. And I talk a little bit about how people who are musically oriented got through the last 3 years. Now, as for Annie Ray, you had something, you were about to have a baby during that time. Talk a little bit about how it came to be with the incredible Crescendo Orchestra program that was, again, you were already a part of the orchestral directorship and teaching at Annandale. How did the last 3 years go for Annie Ray and her family and your musical world?
Oh my gosh, so much has changed, and it's been like this huge journey that I've just been like really lucky to be a part of and like found myself with. And it actually, despite like Crescendo in its full capacity starting in 2020, it actually began back in 2018 when
Beautiful.
I had two twin brothers who were put into my general strings class who had higher support needs. And there was just so many times I was contemplating to myself where I was like, "Ah, I feel like I'm failing them. Like they don't feel like I don't think that they're excited to
Right.
be here. I don't know if I'm able to teach them. I'm not able to get to them all alone. I feel like I'm ignoring them." And so I pulled them after class one day and I worked with them one-on-one. And I quickly realized I was like, oh, you actually know everything that's going on. You're just processing it a different
Right.
way. And it was this moment of realizing that they deserve to have the attention that they they deserve to have a proper music education,
Sure.
a proper journey. And so I
Sure.
started going and attending all of their IEP meetings and advocating for them to like really be in music and stuff.
Right.
And then we started dabbling a little bit more in 2019. Then 2020, I'm at Annandale, pandemic hits, and everything shuts down.
Sure.
And so I was teaching from the school because my husband decided to take it upon himself and renovate the whole world, as one does during a pandemic. And it's very hard to teach anything when you are trying to teach over the sound of a sledgehammer and
Right.
all behind you. So I was teaching at the school, and at the time they brought the students with higher support needs back. So the students in the Category B special education department.
Right. And you were
Now,
walking around the school and you were seeing what they were doing and going,
yeah, and it's something that like I had known about before, not just because of the
sure.
starting things in 2018, but because there's these fantastic programs of like United Sound out there, of the Giving Bach BAC
Right.
composer programs out there. And so I knew that this could be done. And so I invited them down during my planning period and started making music. And they just latched onto it right away. So then from there, I started sitting into their actual like classes and being like, what does their curriculum look like? And so from that curriculum, I reached out to the general music teacher who was at Annandale Terrace Elementary School,
Right.
Essa Linton. She's phenomenal. And asking her, because she has a self-contained autism music class, she gave me resources. My mom, who's a general music teacher, gave me resources. And combining that with my string pedagogy, we developed what Crescendo is now today. Which my principal, like in my administration, I'm so lucky to have believes in this and believes in my programs. And so he let me create its own designated class that meets instead of after schools like Best Buddy or Special Olympics style. It became its own curriculum. And so I did not like use the resources of Giving Bach and United Sound. I decided to just create the curriculum based off of what was happening in the special education classroom. So it
Right.
was the same materials that they knew already and putting my own spin on things, along with working with their physical therapist, their occupational therapist, their
Right.
sports team, my instructional assistants. It's such a huge group project. It's not just me. And so it's
Well, yeah. And one of your quotes, music is very inherently human. You don't have to be able to speak. What if I could make some music with them? And that's what you were already in the mind of. And I think that is, I've seen the footage of it too on some of these television pieces that you've done. And it really just shows another part of you, the way you've, because of your other part of Annandale and the orchestral director and things like that. I love the quote though. There's you're an advocate for providing universal access to quality music education, and known,
Yeah.
I mean, and known for founding and developing creative opportunities to make music accessible to students of all demographics. There are 66 countries represented in the student body, right?
Yes.
Something like that. 130 kids are taught. This must seem like some wonderful thing that is taken your life and run with it at a fairly young age. It must feel really wonderful.
And that's what I keep on telling people is like my name is on the Grammy and the trophy, but it's really Annandale's award. And
It's so sweet.
when I no, it's not because it is it's true. Like it's so
Yeah.
many of my colleagues and the media have really latched onto the Crescendo Orchestra piece, which is beautiful. I'm so honored that they deserve the attention of that. But it's so much more than that here at Annandale. It is all those different countries coming together, and a lot of those countries outside of our school walls or in the world right now would not like each other very much.
Right,
But
right.
here we're connecting on like a fundamentally like human level, and it's so lucky that I get to be a part of that. And the coolest thing is that like I actually started at Annandale Terrace Elementary School, which is our direct feeder. So I have ninth and 10th graders with me right now who were my fourth grade group. And so I've
Oh,
watched these kids grow up. And then some of these kids, I was at Glasgow for 1 year assisting the fantastic Alexandra Blaine there. And so I've watched these kids
oh,
grow up. I'm writing recommendation letters for these students I've seen literally become who they are.
right, right.
Um, and watch them just grow from into these beautiful people, and to write a recommendation letter, be like, you have no idea how cool this kid is if you let him
Oh,
in. Like I've literally watched them become who they are.
oh, I
It's
love
like
that.
it's like the greatest honor of my life. But like it's this community, and it's such a beautiful welcoming community. Like when I was pregnant with my second, I
Right.
had a mom who would send me weekly Korean traditional dishes being like, make sure you're eating, make sure you're eating, make sure you're eating,
Wow.
taking care of me. So I'm just lucky that I get to be at the centerfold and get to be a part of the journey that is Annandale. And
Totally. And
yeah.
when did your journey begin in this region? Because I know you began your life in Texas, and we'll talk a little bit about some of your influences back then, including mom, the music teacher. But when
Yes.
did Annandale become part of Annie Ray?
Um, so I moved up here in the winter of the January of 2018, the January of 2018. And I moved up here because my husband won a job in Pershing's own United States Army Band. He's a phenomenal euphoniumist, like just
Right. Yes.
absolutely incredible soloist. Dr. Irving Ray, everyone YouTube him. But
Yay.
so we moved up here, and I was plopped in. And back in Texas, I was very steeped in like middle school and high school pedagogy. But here I was, and I was dropped into an elementary school, and
Right.
I was like, this is so different than anything that I was like ever could be used to. And so but from there it just kind of changed everything for
Right.
me. And it's this Annandale community. So when this job came open, I cannot tell you how fast I applied to be here. And there's no other place I'd rather be.
Oh, I bet. It seems that, and also, again, the inclusion of the crescendo or program, the other things that have come to you and you've developed, as well as being such an incredible music influencer and innovator with these kids. You've done a number of things that we'll talk about too. In 2022, the TEDx program, you did the talk there, the Sounds of Success. Talk a little bit about what that was.
That was something I thought was a phishing attempt on my laptop. um, the Washington Post had come and done a story on Crescendo Orchestra its first year that it was going. So I was developing the curriculum as I was going, which that's to say, I actually redo from scratch the curriculum every single year based on the students who are in front of me.
Right.
But so the Washington Post came out, they were looking for a story, a positive thing going on in education. And my principal was like, hey, there's this thing going on. And so they came and watched, and then the story ran, and then TEDx saw it, and they reached out to me and were like, hey, we would love for you to talk about this. And I was like, this is a spam. But it turned out to be a real thing. And there it was. And it was this really like weird moment where they have like this whole like dinner before, and you get to meet the other speakers, and you have these like uh incredible, like high range, like NASA scientists, a woman who was
Wow.
speaking on microplastics, all these things. And they're like, and what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a music teacher.
Yes.
But it was this moment
Perfect.
where I was like, no, I'm a music teacher. And what I do is equally important as like what you all are doing.
Right.
And I'm so excited to share with the world why music education matters.
Well, I
Um,
love that, Annie, because it says based on your approach in the classroom and how to meet students where they are at. Because that
yeah,
seems like what you're doing. You're not only growing the students that you've had for a long time and doing that part of it, but also the crescendo, and you're going to where the kid. It must be just wonderful to feel that.
it is, and that's the thing. So when the Sounds of Success, like the story is told through the vehicle of Crescendo Orchestra, because that's what Crescendo Orchestra taught me. It was like fundamentally what it means, like why music matters and like what it means to truly meet students where they're at. But the story of the Sounds of Success is actually not about crescendo. It's about why music education should be a core part of every student's curriculum,
Yes.
whether you are a student with higher support needs, or whether you're a student who's wanting to go to like Yale or like Brown, or whether you're a student who's wanting to take a gap year or have attendance issues or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like the most fundamental part of learning is happening in the music classroom. So it's actually the story of the case about like why some of the best teaching in schools right now is
Right.
happening in every music classroom across the country. All these buzzwords we're throwing out right now of warm demander, of meeting students where they're at, of all these sorts of things has been happening in the orchestra or in the music and performing arts for years. It's a
Oh.
fundamental part of our curriculum.
Oh, I bet. And hasn't there been in the past, though, over the last number of years, an interesting lowering of music education around in schools and around in places, and people are like, "What are you doing?" I remember I interviewed Herb Alpert, who was given a trumpet when he was 4 or 5 years old or something in one of his classes, the amazing trumpeter of all time. And
Mhm.
he said later he wanted to become so much a part of music education because what it gave him as a young child. Did you find that ever in your history over the last number of years since you've been doing this, that it's been a challenge to keep the music education as prominent and important as it should be?
Well, that was the big challenge with the Annandale community when I first inherited it. It
Wow.
was there was a just a shift in the understanding of what music education is supposed to be. And so when
Right.
it had the program, when I first came, there was only 60 students in the orchestra program. And that's for like a multitude of reasons. Now we have, I think, 140 something signed up next year.
Fantastic.
And it's not a matter of um me doing that. It's a matter of allowing of educating the community about like what we're doing, what we're trying
Sure.
to teach. And I'm lucky I have an administration that like allows me to do these things that celebrate that. But that's like why Parent Orchestra came into existence. And we teach over 200 caregivers every year how to play their child's instrument, because
Oh,
what we're trying to do is we're trying to show people like it's not about the notes and rhythms on the page.
right.
It's so much about the what's happening in between those notes. And
Totally.
and um in education right now also there's this huge push for like social emotional learning,
Right.
right? And that often leads to a lot of presentations or like lessons or things like that that they do. And it's like, it's so frustrating for me to go through that because it feels so inorganic, and it's taking away a time period when that's happening so organically
Right.
in our classrooms. I'm watching kids come out of their shells and laugh for the first time over a note mistake that they made. And like, how cool is that to happen?
Yes.
And so, um, it's hard, especially now there's a new round of budget cuts that are hitting the state of Virginia, that are hitting across the United States, and music programs are being axed, just absolutely decimated. Virginia Beach in particular is getting just completely demolished, and
Sure.
they're one of the strongest music education centers, and
Damn.
it's just devastating. And so with this platform that I've been given, like I've been really trying to focus on advocacy for the performing arts, and that
Sure.
includes things like theater, that includes art classes, photography, like these fundamental things where students get in touch with a very sensitive part of who they are in
Right.
ways that they never would before.
Oh, absolutely. Look what you've been able to do amidst those challenges. It seems like you've created and done an incredible thing. to get it to a place where it is. And look, prior to this Grammy thing that we'll talk about, you were named the Fairfax County Public Schools Outstanding Secondary Teacher of the Year. Now, that has got to feel really wonderful, though. I mean, you've got a lot in your world and that has nothing to do with awards. You sound humble, very, very humble, but that must have felt wonderful a year ago.
Uh, it felt shocking. I was pregnant with my second at that time, so I felt more like a bowling ball, like a ball exchange. But like it was a moment of like, thank you to Fairfax County for recognizing that music is equal. Like music is equal to so many things that we're doing. And
Totally.
like and it's one of those things that I'm working with, and some things I'm contemplating, especially like right now. What I'm contemplating is the fact that like in a world right now where the kids are very insular, where they're very much on their phones and to themselves.
Right.
How cool is it that I get 80 minutes where it's not in their hands, their device is not in their hands. I get 80 minutes of just them.
Oh.
And they, if they're playing, they can't pick up their phones. And I have these students who are coming out, and it's very interesting because with, like, for example, like a math problem, it's very easy to struggle privately and not out loud to your friends or in front of things. But with music, you have to be willing to like make a very loud, bad sound publicly.
Totally. Right.
And folks to laugh about. So that's the environment I try to create. And it's a lot of thanks to these students and this crop of freshmen that I'm saying goodbye to now this year. It's devastating. It's hard. I'm losing 45 of them.
Oh.
But I'm saying goodbye to these students who set the tone and set the thermostat in the program of like, no, we're going to celebrate mistakes and we're going to laugh about it. And then we just came back from our spring trip, and we're going to, they do these goofy things. We were like coming back, and they were like doing karaoke on the way back that they were leading. And then one of the kids goes to the bus driver, "Hey, Mr. Scott, like what's up next on the playlist?" And he's like, "How about some green eggs and ham?" They're like, "Okay."
Oh.
Okay. So they're playing green eggs and ham on the way back. They're like, "I do not like green eggs and ham." And they're just like, "Oh." And it's all these kids that are like, who are setting that tone of like, just be you.
Oh.
Be out there. And so I've watched a lot of these kids who are so quiet, like just grow into these personalities, or like they're trying to kidnap a pigeon in New York City and like do all these things. Like these things they never would have expressed otherwise. And then that's why I love these spring trips. They've come back now, and I'm watching them be just a little bit more bold, and they're playing, willing to try a little bit more.
Right.
And that's again one of those things that's so great about Parent Orchestra is these caregivers are getting to experience like, no, we can't complain that little Jimmy's bringing home their violin and we want to put in our earplugs because how demotivating is it? No, let's celebrate process.
Yes.
Let's celebrate being bad at something right away. And how brave are these 200 caregivers who are coming in and learning as adults how to be very bad at something,
right,
and how to be very good, and to get to model that for their children.
Exactly.
Like, what a journey they're on. And I'm so proud of them every year for coming and just being brave and owning that.
Oh, well, that's spectacular. I love every minute of that. My partner Suzanne is in the Main Street Community Band, in Fairfax, the big orchestral band, and her conductor is Jeff Seffens, who used to be at Katherine Johnson Middle School, which was the previous named school over in Fairfax. And there is a lot of that in his mindset too, about the way it just the enriching of kids. You continued in 2023 with a Wolf Trap educator situation with Crystalise Bacon, which that had to be a wonderful. What was the Wolf Trap connection?
Yeah, that came from, it's so funny. When I first got the job, they asked me, one of my interview questions was, if you could hire anyone to write a piece for your program, who would it be? And I said, I want Crystalise Bacon. And they were like, who is this? And I was like, he is this incredible, innovative hip hop beatbox artist who bends genres and combining strings with hip hop, combining different cultures of music and bending them together. And it's this beautiful juxtaposition he puts of something that you might think clashes, and it works together. And it's just like the exemplification of what music is, which is the act of making music, bringing us together. Not music being the universal language itself, but the act of making music being what the universal language is. And so I saw this grant pop up, the Wolf Trap Music Educator grant. And so I applied for it. I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this. This is such like a ridiculous idea. Like, will he even say yes? And then I got it and he said yes. And next thing we know, Beyonce's violinist, and Zima offered to like let us use her arrangement of Vivaldi force
Oh,
and bring it together with this like hip hop moment. And it turned into this incredible thing. And because I recognize that like I personally do not represent the demographic of the population of students I'm teaching. I visibly am not that, but I can lead them to the avenues of exploring those things that interest them. And it's one of those things of like, people think that when we say meet kids where they're at, we're lowering standards, but it's not that. Let me find where you are. Let me pull you along and show you how great the journey can be and bring you to be better than you ever thought you could.
right.
And it's a lot of teachers will be like, well, if you want to get a program revitalized, let the kids pick their own music. Yes, but there's so much beauty in tradition of different sorts of music, of different genres. If you let them only pick what they know, they'll never grow. And so
Right.
let me show you this huge diverse range of music out there of things that you can do. Let me bring in a hip hop artist, or let me do a world a Heritage Night-esque concert. Let me
Right.
show you Mozart in a new way. Let me show you about why it's so nerdy and amazing and cool. Let me show you about how music connects to ballet and how it connects to art and how it connects to history. Let me show you all of these things. And so that's what the whole Wolf Trap thing was all about, was that, and recognizing a moment of like, I'm not the best teacher for them to teach them improvisation and
Right.
I'm not that. But let me bring in this really cool guy who's from the Annandale area
Oh.
and show you how great it could be.
Oh my gosh, what a wonderful thing to have gone through with him and and also just being connected with Wolf Trap, which I've been connected with them for years too, and that's
Phenomenal.
such an amazing place in so many different ways. Um, Come 2024, I've read all about this amazing thing that happened, but I want you to tell in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about how this came to be, this Grammy Music Educator Award that you found out, I think the night before, a few nights before, and then headed out for the awards, right?
So I actually knew for a month before, and
Right.
the rest of the world found out like a day before, and I just kept it secret. I was asked to, but also through the whole process, I kept it to myself because again, like it's about like the program, it's about the student,
Smart.
it's not
True.
about me. Um,
Yes.
so I was originally nominated 2 years ago by our then department chair, Dr. Mike Ward, and
Wow.
he nominated me and I went pretty far in the process. And then I was renominated this last year by Dr. Angela Ammerman. And those nominations actually mean so much to me because to have
Sure.
your colleagues believe in what you're doing and respect it
Right.
it
Exactly.
meant the world. And then so from there, there's like a written portion, and the next portion is like this video series that they do. And at the time I was pregnant with my second baby, I was extremely sick. I cannot like understate. Like I was sick like for basically 9 straight months. It was
Oh
not
no.
great setting. I was like powering through it. And so I pulled three students aside and I said, hey, there's this thing that's going on in my life. There's these videos that need to be made. And one of them is supposed to sum up our entire program. I'm not in a space that I can do this right now. If you think that I'm worthy of it, and if you think that you would like to take on this project, please do so. And so they did. And they filmed class and they did these voiceovers, and they had me do some voiceovers too, like to explain some more things. And they presented me with this video, and it's the greatest gift I've ever been given. And I will hold and I cherish it more than the trophy ever will. Because in that moment, when they said everything, I was like, oh, they get it. Like
Oh,
they get it. And I did it. And if I've always said if I change one student's life, then I've done my job. Like if I've changed one student to understand what music actually is about, then I've done my job.
right.
And they said more than I ever thought they would. And it was incredible. And again, like a lot of people, the media was really latched onto the Crescendo piece, which is incredible and deserves to be highlighted. Like I'm gonna put out the world, special education teachers need more funding and more support. The work that they have done to help me with that program is astronomical, and they're
Sure.
phenomenal people. But
Right.
it was actually only about 37 seconds of the whole 7-minute video.
Right.
And so the entire video like really focused on like, what does it mean to meet everyone where they're at? What does it mean to celebrate process? What does it mean to celebrate joy? And they got it, and the students got it, and so that video means more to me than ever. And so from there, like, it goes through like the whole round process. There's multiple videos. There's like this whole like thing that goes
Right.
on.
Well, you're right, Annie. And for nominations can mean almost as much because you hear why people want you to win or want you to be recognized. And it's like, oh, well, thank you. And then if you win, it's like, bingo, obviously a huge thing. But yes,
I never thought in a million years I would win, because the educators who have been highlighted every year, they are incredible. And then there's also some part of me where I have this award and I'm like, I see my colleague just like one door over, who's a phenomenal educator, who I'm like deserves to be celebrated like this. The rest of my strings teachers in Fairfax County, like, they're doing incredible, incredible work. That deserves to be featured. So I'm really trying to take this award and be like, look at what Fairfax County is doing. Look at what my colleagues are doing. Look at what the special education team is doing. Look at what music education is doing.
right.
And so, but anyways, I got this phone call, like, and my daughters at the time were like having an utter meltdown. Like, I'm telling, like, it was not good. And
Oh,
they were like, congratulations, like, you're our winner. And I was like, what? They're like, your girls sound so excited for you. I'm like, yep.
yep, they are.
They're very excited. And so I get off the phone and I'm like going back and like to my momming thing and like supporting them, like, come on, girls, like, pull it together. And in my head,
Right.
so I just won a Grammy. Like, what just happened? And then I just kind of kept it secret until the students all found out. The CBS, like, my school put together a little watch party, and the kids were like, what if you don't win? That's going to be very awkward. I'm like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But the next day I'm whisked off to the Grammys after they announce it. And like,
What did you expect? What did you expect that to be like? You knew it was going to be mind blowing, but wow. Because
well, I mean, all I own is like sweatpants to wear. So they're like, what do you even wear, like, to the Grammys and stuff? And so it was an incredibly humbling experience.
well, the outfit was lovely though, Annie. So
Well, thank you. Thank
yes,
you.
both you and your husband looked absolutely marvelous going to the Grammys. I mean, and being a winner. So, but
Yeah,
yes,
it was a cool thing, but it was like an incredibly humbling experience too. But also, like, a lot of people will say, like, was it hard speaking to so many people? Is it hard doing the media thing? And it's not, because when you have the story of Annandale and getting to share the student's story, like, it's easy to talk about, because these are the coolest students in the world and the coolest community that the world needs to know about what music education is doing here,
right.
and why it's so important, and why music diplomacy is so important, and why we need to lean into what is the same with us in the world instead of what's different.
Yes, absolutely. And what I love is that, again, obvious reactions from people like Taylor and Meryl Streep and people that you met up with were for a reason. And, if you were a great singer and you won an award, they'd be happy for you. But the music educator thing had to really be an extra piece for a lot of these people who had already been through Grammys years before and won and Oscars and all that. So that had to make you feel wonderful that they were so motivated and happy that you were involved with the music education part of this.
Yeah, Meryl Streep said to me, she was like, a music educator changed her life and is why she is where she is today. And then Oprah was so kind, and like, they were just, it was a moment where I was like, oh, you're just all people. You're just people. And they to process that and to be there with that, and to celebrate that with them was beautiful. And
I bet.
it was just like also a moment where, like, I was watching like Dua Lipa perform, and like inches from me, and I'm just like, this whole like process of like all these things that are going on. But I had a moment I was like, oh, I'm having the same reaction as if when I was like watching like Hilary Hahn perform, like, oh, you're just a musician, you're just like me, you're just doing all of these things as well, to be celebrated and to be with those people. It's just a very like cool moment where I was like with like Ice Cube, like, or Ice Cube was like watching me get my award and like give a speech and thank them, and he stood up and like applauded for me. And it was like incredible. But then, like, it was just like a weird moment. But then like also, so I was the first award that was given out at like the special merit awards. And then the last award was for the award for songs for social change. And I don't want to say his name wrong, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's this artist who wrote this piece called Refugee.
Oh,
And they didn't realize like the juxtaposition of like the two sides of things to bookend the event, because at our school at Annandale, we have so many refugees. We have so many students who just immigrated here,
right.
or this is they're the first generation that has been born here, or they're the first generation that's going off to college. And it was just this moment where I pulled him aside and I said, you have no idea like how much that song meant to me. And his speech was beautiful. It was beautiful. And he said, in this in his language, in his home language, the word for home derives from the same word as mother, and with mothers being our first home. And as a new mother myself, which has been the greatest teacher of my life, that really hit home to me.
Oh,
Myself, like hit my heart. And he said this award is for my mother who gave up everything for me.
oh,
And so and that's something I've been really, another thing I've been really pondering is this position of like motherhood and music education, and those things that come together. So it was just a beautiful event, and that moment and hearing his speech was probably the pinnacle for me.
oh, I bet it was. And when I was watching, I learned you won and was going, wait a minute. What? Annandale? Wait, why don't I know who she is? We could have done a Living on Music show before any Grammy, and I would have loved to have done that. This is icing on the cake in such a wonderful way for you. And I love the attention that you've been getting and what you've still done. Most of you say, most of all, I want to thank my students to whom the award actually belongs. That is with such a huge heart and soul. And it just shows what you are giving to these kids.
Well, I mean it. They've created something special here, but I really try to focus on celebrating them, and because I am just someone who has been taught by them of what it means to meet students where they're at, what it means to meet kids where they're at, and what music education is all about. In just celebrating that and highlighting that, and to be able now to speak on that and have the platform to share that with the rest of the world. And I'm strictly really focusing on a lot of non-music educators of
Right.
advocating for the arts. And I'm really finding that being the piece, the component of it coming together, but I'm also finding the component of it coming together of advocating for the longevity of teachers in our profession. We're facing right now a crisis of a lack of certified, quality trained music
Right.
educators.
Right.
And there's many reasons that we're hitting a crisis point with just like teachers in general. Uh,
Hmm.
but it's specifically music education. So something I started doing back when I first got back to in person with these kids was identifying those students who would be great music educators and just don't know it yet. And so I have I can't remember how many students are going off into doing music in some capacity. Like most of them who are graduating are going to do some sort of music, whether it's to join their student ensemble or whatever. But I have multiple kids who are graduating and going on to music education.
Oh,
A lot of those students or performance or composition, and those are kids that I pulled aside their sophomore, junior year, being like, you're really good at this. And not because you're the best player, you're the first chair, but because of who you are and the joy that you bring to the classroom. And there was this one kid, he was like failing all of his classes except orchestra, and he kept on trying to like sneak in the room. And I pulled him aside and I said, what do you want to do with your life? And he was like, oh, I don't know, I think I'm gonna go like do engineering or something. And I was like, what room are you always trying to escape to? And it's the orchestra room. And now he's going to do or a music education, because he was like, you're right.
oh,
and and I was like, you don't have to be the best performer if you have a hunger to learn and a drive to learn. And so that's like my big project, and as well as like mentoring the new teachers who are coming in,
right.
and the supports that they need. And that's what, again, parent orchestra is all about. It's been not just about educating the community or letting the students be the experts. Now we're taking in brand new teachers, novice teachers, and mentoring, partnering them up, and they get to teach in an environment where there's no classroom management issues.
Oh,
And we're doing that with the pre-student teaching teachers. I've
Right.
had my high schoolers come in and teach and be like, just give it a shot. See how you feel on the podium. See what that makes you feel like. And so that's become another project. And like I said before, like another project along with being a mother. And there's a lot of us as women who end up leaving the profession because I never found like a long-term sub for me when I was on maternity leave that
Right.
was a Spanish teacher except for 3 days a week. And so we had to pair it with someone else, and we ended up having to have 3 different teachers coming in. I have a
Wow.
friend right now who's on maternity leave who never found a music teacher,
Right.
whose program's just kind of like in limbo, and that's not sustainable. Or like the fact that there's no like even template for maternity leave plans for music teachers, or there's not even like supports, or like how do you fit in like a pumping schedule? How do you do this? How do you give all day on the podium and then
Right.
home and have to give even more? Like, what does
Oh,
that look like? And so that's something I'm really excited to be launching along with my partner in all of this. Again, Alexandra Blaine. Um,
right.
it's something that we're really diving into to create a conversation about it, but not just a conversation, solutions, resources, putting things out there.
Right.
And so those are my next journeys, is making our profession sustainable, make our
Well,
profession legitimized to other people, and
sure.
and to make it on the pinnacle of where it deserves to be.
Well, that's fantastic in so many ways, Annie. And another reason being, again, we mentioned it a couple of times, that your mom was a music teacher, and you knew that early on in your life, I'm sure, from the very beginning. Did you feel, what age did you possibly feel that it was going to be part of what you wanted to do? Because I'm sure that she showed you some beauty of music teaching in right there.
My parents and my family gave me every opportunity in the world. And I started piano when I was 3, harp when I was 5. One
Yes,
of my degrees is in harp performance.
harp
Um,
continuing
yes,
to go for you.
yes, continuing. I'm still performing concertos around the area,
Yes,
big, performing with my husband.
yes, you are
But
beautiful.
the path through that though was a little bit different. The path to coming to music education was actually
Right.
inspired by my current my ongoing mentor. He was my middle school director, Dennis Langevin in Texas. And then I got
Wow.
to the honor of going back to student teach with him. And to this day, like I literally was just showing one of my students that that I'm mentoring right now, who's gonna do music ed. I was just showing him my notes like from all that time of like pulling stuff out. I still reference.
Oh,
It holds so dear. And him and Brian Coatney, who taught me really how to be just absolute, like how to be fearless. Like the first day I walked into student teaching with him, and he handed me the baton. He was like, "You're teaching today." um, but
come on.
to have so through middle school is like what really sparked the bug of me. And Dennis Langevin is someone who needs to be celebrated. Like his strength is meeting kids where they're at. His strength is celebrating uh process. His strength is creating joy in the classroom and what orchestra is all about.
Oh,
And it's just an incredible educator. It's just an incredible educator people need to know more about. And I'm super excited because he's coming up to like conduct our region
oh,
district honor orchestra in a few years, where people get to experience that as well. But
oh,
so from there, I kind of knew I wanted to do music ed, and I wanted to do a performance that had music in my life. I mean, my cousins are professional musicians. My
yes,
uncle are band and orchestra directors,
right,
very deep in my life. But it's one of those things that like shifted for me when I came to Annandale again, of recognizing that I was given every opportunity in the world to succeed with this. And these students also deserve that, to have every opportunity. So that's the word of my program, is just opportunity. I will
right,
give you every opportunity. And so that's why we have we work with the nonprofit Music for Life, where we went from no kids getting private lessons in our program, not a single one, to over 80 of our students receive free 30-minute in-school private lessons once a week through this nonprofit with my fabulous team of Christian Coe, Robin Tozzi, and Mr. Mark Evans Jr., Sinai Hindi, who have poured so much love into my kids. And like 30 minutes isn't a long time, but it's
right.
enough. Like, okay, let's adjust the wrist a little bit. Let's like think about like, let's do some solo work together now. Let's think about like our own individual goals. And they have the right to that. And I put
Right.
it specifically during the school day because equity is not just about finances. Equity is also about time. A lot of my kids have sports after school, or they're working a job to support their families, or they're the caregiver for their siblings at
Yeah.
home. So it has to be during the school day. The opportunity has to happen during there. And again, thank you to Shonda Rose. Thank you to my administration team who believes in that opportunity as well and
Right.
allowed us to institute the program through Music for Life. So
Sure.
I'm the luckiest person in the world to have administration that celebrates this.
Oh, yeah, and I love what you said at the start of your career. You felt a calling to expand music education beyond what it is right then, and it seems like that's what you're doing. You're doing the wonderful, regular this room behind me. Where is that?
Yeah. This is my orchestra room.
Yes, and there you are looking at us. But you not only do that wonderful teaching of music, but you seem to have a desire to kind of expand it and expand it, and that is something very special. You should feel very, very proud and excited about that.
Well, my husband, again, a phenomenal musician,
Irving,
different, yeah, Irving, Dr. Irving Ray comes from a very different background as me. He comes from um, a place where opportunity was not as readily available.
right?
And he was the only person in his family who ended up pursuing music. All of his brothers and sisters, which there's 8 of them, all did music in some capacity in band. And but the reason like he is who he is because of band, is because a band director, Frank Troika, believed in him and sat with him and loved him and cared about him and pushed him and told him to be better. You can do this, and gave him every opportunity. And it changed his life.
Oh,
And these students, my students deserve every opportunity that I was so lucky to be given, because when you see the joy on their faces of practicing, or they come in and they're doing things on their own, it's you're watching the world become a better place, like before your eyes. You're watching the next generation happen, and it's happening.
totally. Oh, that's just unbelievable. I wanted to mention one real quick thing. I'm a part of the WAMI Awards Advisory Committee, right? So we're
Yeah.
doing a panel at the Hard Rock Cafe on April 15th, where we're going to be talking to upcoming and burgeoning musicians.
Yeah.
What would Annie Ray advise to them in a general sense of what they should have as an important part of themselves if they want to continue and even succeed in the world of music?
Always be learning.
Bingo.
Always be learning. I try to watch as many of my colleagues teach as possible. And I try to read as much as I can, listen to podcasts, but there's nothing like going and watching your colleagues teach, whether it's an English teacher, whether it's a choral director, who I love watching choral directors teach. If you have not instituted singing in your program yet, you are doing it wrong.
Right.
Like I just always be learning. You don't know, and you know you're on the right path if you start feeling like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, you're on the right path. Because there's no way for one person to ever be the expert, and humble yourself to being taught, humble yourself to being wrong, humble yourself to someone else's different perspective. And that's what you'll be able to do. But I guess I get to see you at the Whammies because I'm going to be at the Whammies too. So
Oh, well, that's so great. Unfortunately, I won't be at the Whammies, even as a judge. I'm going to go see Steep Canyon Rangers at the Birchmere and hopefully interview those guys. I do live hits at the Birchmere before shows when they let me in early and nobody's in there yet, and it's all
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
But I will miss that because I would have loved to have met you there. But I hope we can another time.
Oh,
Look,
for sure.
Annie Ray, I've been wanting to talk to you. Sure, the Grammys were a huge rising, thing for anybody in their life. But boy, have I learned so much more before and what will come after to that to you. And I just want to congratulate you for for everything you have done so far for Annandale, for anybody else that you've been involved with. And I think it's going to expand. I mean, you're a young woman with a huge life ahead, and I think you're really going to take a role in this world of music expansion on people. And again, education is fantastic, but also the other parts of it that you've been talking about. I'm wishing you the very best and thanking you for being on Living on Music with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was unbelievable, and I hope to run across you at some point in this area because again, music is huge part of my life, and playing in cover bands for 18 years, and it's been such an unbelievable run. And again, I wish I'd learned more in music when I was younger, and from somebody like you. But thanks, Annie Ray. Good luck with everything. Congratulations on everything you're doing, and we'll keep in close touch, I hope.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Oh, that is one very special lady in so many ways. Again, she had something going full bore without even a Grammy, win. And, to be able to add that to her palette as she's going through her amazing career. And again, expanding not only students learning music, but also people teaching music, the different possibilities of people getting themselves involved in music in a number of different ways. It was an amazing talk. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, I hope you did too. And I hope we keep in close touch. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to become a Living on Music member of Facebook, go right here. Living on Music on Steve Houck on Facebook. Become a member also on YouTube for a free subscription. You go right on and you only get pinged a few times during the month, a couple times. If we have new episodes coming or things like that, excerpts, things like that. And if you're a podcast fan, you can go right here to Spreaker.com at the Living on Music with Steve Houck base, but also any major podcast app that you like. You just search Living on Music with Steve Houck, and most of them will have us, and you can go right to your own podcast. You can save it, so it's always findable, and listen to it there. But we love having people watch also on YouTube because it's a visual thing. I'm a TV guy, been for 40 years, and so I love presenting at this, but it also can be really nice to listen to. Annie Ray, thank you again, my dear. Best to your husband, Irving, and your wonderful two kids who I just would love to meet someday, ELOISE and MILLIE. But best of luck to you, and keep it alive and keep it a wonder for people who are around you and want to learn more about the world of music. And everybody else, also remember that if you want to stay happy, stay above board, and at least stay kind of even in your world, just keep living on music.